My name is Sarah Voss. I am 29 years old. And right now the woman who built half the boutique hotels on the eastern seaboard is standing at the end of my aunt's dining room table, holding a glass of Pinot Noir. And the toast she started 3 minutes ago about my cousin's new business venture has quietly become the most precise, unhurried dismantling of a lie I have ever witnessed in person. She stopped walking right behind my chair. 1 second ago she was talking about vision and what it means to trust a creative partner with your brand. My mother was smiling the smile she reserves for rooms where she needs people to like her. My cousin was leaning into his fiancée with the comfortable posture of someone who has never once had to explain himself at a family dinner. And then this woman looked down at me, and in a voice that didn't rise but somehow filled every corner of the room, she said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt myself, but I have to ask. Are you the Sarah Voss who did the interior construct for the Hadley properties?" My mother laughed before I could speak. It was her hostess laugh, the bright one she uses to redirect conversations like a traffic cone placed in front of a lane she'd rather you didn't enter. "Oh, Sarah does some decorating on the side. She's more of a homebody, really, very low-key." The woman did not look at my mother to understand how I became the daughter my own family described as a hobbyist in rooms full of strangers. "You have to understand the refrigerator door. I came up with that name when I was 7, standing in our kitchen in Roanoke, Virginia, staring at the side panel of our fridge where my mother kept things she wanted people to see. My cousin Devin's baseball card from the local paper. A photo of my cousin Bex at her spelling bee with the principal. A magnet from my aunt's vacation in the Outer Banks. My drawings were never on the door. They were in a folder in the junk drawer, which is where my mother put things she didn't know what to do with. I tried twice. I taped up a watercolor I'd made of our backyard oak tree. By the next morning it was in the drawer. The second one was a pencil sketch of my grandmother's hands that my art teacher had asked if she could keep a copy of. Same result. After that, I stopped putting things on the door and started building rooms in my head instead. Entire houses. Floor plans I drew in the margins of my homework, color palettes I named after things I could smell. Cedar after rain, the inside of a used bookstore, the particular warmth of a lamp left on in a room you just left. My mother's explanation for the junk drawer was always some variation of the same thing. "I don't want people coming over and thinking we're the kind of family that plasters every little thing everywhere." What she meant, I understood much later, was that my things didn't fit the story she was telling about us. The story starred Devin and Bex. Devin, who lettered in 3 sports and got a partial scholarship to Virginia Tech, and Bex, who married early and well and had 2 children by the time she was 26, which my mother described to her book club as living intentionally. I was the oldest, the one who left Roanoke for RISD at 18, on a merit scholarship that my mother mentioned to exactly no one, and came back at 22, with a degree in interior architecture, and a head full of ideas about space and light that didn't translate into anything she could explain at the hair salon. I started out doing residential projects, small ones. A young couple's first home in Charlottesville. A home office conversion in Richmond for a retired teacher who wanted something that felt like her. Word got around slowly, the way it does when you're good, but not famous and you don't have the kind of family that tells anyone. By the time I was 26, I had a studio in Washington, D.C., 2 employees, and a contract with a regional hospitality group called Hadley and Pine that was trying to turn a cluster of underperforming boutique properties into something people would actually drive out of their way to stay in. The Hadley project was 18 months of my life. I slept badly and ate at my desk and drove to properties in 3 states with a tape measure and a notebook and an opinion about natural light that I will defend to anyone who will sit still long enough. The renovation launched to a feature in Architectural Digest's digital edition and a follow-up piece in the Washington Post's travel section. My name was in both of them. I called my mother the morning the Post piece ran. I was on my 2nd cup of coffee, and I will admit I was nervous. The specific nervousness of someone who has been waiting a long time for a thing to be seen. She let me get through the headline before telling me that Devin had been promoted to assistant manager at his logistics company, and that his wife was expecting their second. I sat with the phone against my cheek for a moment. Then I said that was great news. Then I hung up and went to my desk and started working on the next project. I kept running the refrigerator door test from 4 states away. Every published project, every industry mention, every award nomination. My mother told her neighbor I was doing some decorating work up in D.C. You know how creative types are, they float around. I found out because the neighbor ran into me at my grandmother's funeral and said, "Your mom mentioned you've been figuring out your path. That's so brave at your age." I had just been shortlisted for a regional design award. I was 27. The thing I want to be careful about here is this. My cousin Devin is a decent person who works hard and loves his kids and has never once been deliberately cruel to me. Bex is the same. The problem was never them. The problem was what my mother did with them. Devon getting promoted became, in her retelling, Devon running operations strategy for a major regional firm. Bex raising her children became Bex building a family empire, which is a phrase I heard my mother use at Easter that made my aunt choke a little on her sweet tea. Nothing my mother said was technically a lie. It was just built on a foundation of selected truths, stacked at flattering angles. The way you can arrange bad furniture to look like a well-designed room if you control the lighting. When I tried once, gently, to mention that the way she described my work didn't quite capture what I actually did, she looked at me with an expression I can only describe as practical. Sarah, nobody at my church circle is going to understand what boutique hospitality interiors means. I'm not going to stand there explaining your whole resume. I said I wasn't asking her to explain it. I was asking her to try. She said, "You've always made things harder than they need to be. I don't have a husband or a house with a yard or children who can be photographed in Halloween costumes and sent out as a family card. I have a studio apartment in the Shaw neighborhood with drafting tools on the dining table, and a dog named Baxter who takes up 3/4 of my bed and has opinions about throw pillows, which I respect. There is no version of my life that fits onto a magnet on a refrigerator door, so my mother had stopped trying to put me there and had been quietly putting other things up instead for about 7 years. I had not planned to come to the dinner at all. My Aunt Loretta lives in Fredericksburg. She has a dining room with a long table she bought at an estate sale, and a habit of inviting too many people and then managing the chaos with a warmth that I genuinely admire. The occasion was a celebration for my cousin Devon's new business partnership, something logistics related that I had nodded through the explanation of at Thanksgiving. His fiancée, Petra, and yes, I noticed that name is on a list, so let me be clear. I'm using it differently here, because Petra is the fiancé's name and I'm not changing real names of real people in my own memory. No, I'll call her Jillian, because this is a story and names matter and I don't want confusion. Jillian's family was coming. Her father was a retired judge, which my mother had mentioned 4 times since November, as though repetition would help me understand what was expected of me. And then there was Eleanor Hadley. Eleanor Hadley is 61 years old, and has the particular stillness of someone who has been the most competent person in every room she's entered for the last 30 years, and no longer needs anyone to confirm it. She is the founder of Hadley and Pine. She was there because Gillian's mother had been her college roommate, which is the kind of coincidence that in a movie would feel contrived, but in life feels like the universe making a point it's been building toward for a while. I did not know she would be there. I found out from Devon, in a text, 2 hours before dinner. He added a thumbs-up emoji, which did not convey the appropriate level of information. I almost didn't go. I stood in my apartment in D.C. in my work clothes from that day, and thought seriously about calling Aunt Loretta with a headache. Then I looked at my drafting table and thought about the 18 months I had spent on the Hadley properties, and the post piece, and the photo my lead contractor had sent me of the Shenandoah location, with morning light coming through the windows I'd specified. And I thought, no. I put on the blazer I'd worn to the Hadley launch event. I didn't think about it too hard. I just reached for it. My mother was already there when I arrived. She had positioned herself at the kitchen end of the dining room and was performing her best version of relaxed helpfulness, the one where she carries things back and forth, so she's always in motion and never has to be pinned down. She intercepted me at the door. "You're wearing that?" She said it lightly, the way you'd say it about an umbrella on a day that might not rain. "We need you to be easy tonight, Sarah. Jillian's family is impressive. Don't make it about you." I said I had no intention of making it about anything. She looked at my blazer for another second, then moved on. I found my place card near the kitchen door between a cousin I barely knew and an empty chair that would eventually be occupied by Gillian's father, the retired judge, whose name was Raymond. Dinner started. My Aunt Loretta is a spectacular cook, and I focused on her short ribs for a while and tried to be easy, as instructed. Devon and Jillian sat at the center of the table, glowing the way engaged people glow when the whole room is pointed at them, which is a glow I've never experienced but have no particular resentment about. Eleanor Hadley sat 3 seats to my right, on the other side of Raymond. She had said hello to me when we were introduced at the start of the evening. She'd paused. Said my name once, like she was pulling it from somewhere. Then my mother had appeared with a breadbasket and said, "Sarah lives up in D.C. She has a sweet little studio," and moved the conversation to Devon's new venture before Eleanor could say anything else. Dinner moved. My mother poured wine and asked Gillian's mother about her garden, and directed every question that came near me like she was a defensive midfielder who'd been practicing this particular play for years. When Raymond asked what I did for work, she answered from across the table. "Sarah has an interior design background. She's exploring different directions right now. I had a studio with 2 employees and a contract I'd signed in January for a mid-sized hotel group in Baltimore," I said gently. "I actually run a design studio. We focus on hospitality interiors. My mother laughed. She's being modest. It's more of a boutique operation. The word boutique in her mouth was not a compliment. Then Eleanor Hadley set down her fork. She didn't tap a glass. She didn't stand dramatically. She picked up her wine and she said, "I'm sorry, I want to go back to something." And the table shifted its attention to her the way rooms always do when someone with that quality of presence decides to speak. She stood. She talked about partnership and trust. And what it means to bring someone into a project that carries your name on it. She talked about the specific vulnerability of handing your vision to another person and asking them to make it real. She gave Devin and Gillian a warm sentence about the courage it takes to build something together, and then she picked up her glass and walked slowly around the outside of the table. The way people walk when they know where they're going and they're not in a hurry about it. She stopped behind my chair. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt myself," she said, "but I have to ask. Are you the Sarah Voss who did the interior concept work for the Hadley properties?" My mother's laugh landed before I could draw breath. "Oh, Sarah does some decorating on the side. She's more of a homebody, really. Very low-key." Eleanor did not look at my mother. I thought about the short answer. The humble deflection. The version of myself that takes up less space so the room stays comfortable. I have been practicing that version for 29 years and I am genuinely good at it. I thought about the Shenandoah property at 7 in the morning, with the light coming through the windows I had fought to keep, the ones the Kai trio they had fought to keep, the ones the contractor had wanted to replace with something cheaper and more efficient, and I had gone 3 rounds with the budget to save. I thought about sleeping in a rental car in the parking lot of the Berkshire location because I'd driven up for a site issue and hadn't budgeted for a hotel night. I thought about the Washington Post piece, folded in my bag right now because I carry it the way some people carry a lucky coin. Not superstition. Just something to hold on to when I can't remember what I'm doing this for. "I am Sarah Voss," I said. "I did the concept and design work for all 4 Hadley locations." Eleanor smiled. It was the specific smile of someone whose filing system has found what it was looking for. "Your work on that project," she said, slowly, to the table, "is some of the most thoughtful space design I have seen in the regional hospitality market in 15 years. The Shenandoah property in particular, the way you handled the transition between indoor and outdoor space in the common area. Our booking rate for that property went up 31% the quarter after launch." My Aunt Loretta made a sound I had never heard her make before. Jillian's mother turned to look at my mother with an expression that was pleasant and absolutely without warmth. "You said Sarah did decorating. Part-time." My mother was folding and refolding her napkin. "I didn't want to dominate the evening with. I was trying to keep things. You told us," Jillian said, looking at Devin, "that she was having a rough patch professionally. That it was better not to ask her about work." Devin looked at my mother. His voice was careful, the voice of someone who is deciding in real time how much of what he knows he wants to say. "Mom told me the same thing. She said Sarah was in a transitional period and we should be sensitive." My Aunt Loretta set down her serving spoon. "Linda. She used my mother's name the way you'd use a stop sign. What exactly have you been saying?" My mother's eyes filled. "I was protecting the family. Sarah's work is polarizing. People don't always understand contemporary design, and I didn't want an argument at a dinner table where we were trying to make a good impression." Raymond spoke for the first time in several minutes. He'd been quiet in the way of someone who listens professionally, and had been listening this whole time. "What I'm hearing," he said, mildly, "is that you built a more impressive story about one child than another, and then told that story to people in a position to form lasting opinions." My mother said, "It isn't like that," he said. "I hope not." Eleanor reached into her jacket and walked around to my side of the table, and set a card next to my water glass. "I've been looking for a lead designer for a project in Asheville. We're moving into development next spring. If you're available for a conversation, that number goes directly to me." Jillian had been very still for the last few minutes. She looked at Devin. "I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly. How many other things did your family tell my family that weren't accurate?" Devin opened his mouth, closed it. "I don't know," he said. "I think I need to find out." Jillian looked at her hands. Then she looked at my mother. "I need some time to think about what I was walking into." She said it quietly and without theater, the way people say things when they mean them exactly as stated. My Aunt Loretta stood. She put her hand on my shoulder as she passed behind me, and that one small gesture cost me most of my composure. I pressed it back down. I stood. I picked up Eleanor's card. I folded my napkin and set it on the table, and I picked up my blazer from the back of my chair. I turned to my mother. "I love you," I said, "but I'm not coming back to a table where you decide what version of me gets to exist. If you want me here, I come as the whole thing. The work, the studio, the Washington Post piece, the 18 months I spent on a project you never once asked me about. All of it, or I'm at a different table." She flinched. It was small and real. My uncle, who had been quiet as the wallpaper all evening, looked up from his plate. "She's right, Linda. You've done this her whole life. I walked out through my aunt's kitchen, past the casserole dish on the counter still warm from dinner, and out into the November air. I sat in my car for a few minutes. Baxter wasn't with me. He was with my neighbor, in D.C., and I felt his absence acutely, the way you feel the absence of anything that knows you completely. My phone started going off around midnight. My mother, escalating in a register I recognized, the one that starts with hurt and accelerates through grievance, until it arrives at something that sounds like consequence. You have made a scene in front of people who matter, Sarah. I hope whatever point you were making was worth it. Devon, around 1 a.m. I didn't know. I want you to know that. I didn't know what she was telling people. I'm sorry. My Aunt Loretta, at 11:15. I made a plate for you. It's in my fridge. Come get it any time. And a number I didn't have saved. A text at 9:47 p.m. This is Eleanor. I hope the drive back is safe. The Asheville project is real and the conversation offer is genuine. No pressure and no timeline. I called Eleanor back 3 weeks later. We met at a coffee shop in Georgetown that she chose, and that turned out to be a 15-minute walk from my studio. Which I took as a sign of something, though I'm not superstitious. She was smaller in person than she seemed at dinner. Or maybe it was just that dinner had been a high-pressure situation, and coffee was not. She wrapped both hands around her mug and said, Your mother told Jillian's mother that you had some personal difficulties and that your career had stalled. She said it with a lot of concern. I believed her initially because concern is very believable. I said, She's been telling some version of that since I left for college. Eleanor said, What do you call it? The pattern. The refrigerator door, I said. Whether or not they ever move your picture to the front. She nodded slowly. Did they? Once, I said. After all of this, the Asheville project is real. I signed the contract in February. Devon and Jillian are in premarital counseling. She told me this herself, in a text, with no editorializing. Just the information. She added, I don't blame you. I just need to understand the architecture of what I'm building into. I told her that was a good way to think about it. She said she knew I would understand that framing. The wedding is being planned. The date has been moved back 6 months, quietly, by mutual agreement. My mother called me on a Tuesday in January. Not a holiday, not a birthday, not an occasion. Just a Tuesday afternoon, she said, I've been describing you wrong to people for a long time. I told myself I was simplifying, but I think what I was actually doing was editing you down until you fit somewhere I understood. A pause. I don't understand what you do. I never really asked you to help me understand it. She didn't cry. I almost wished she had. Not out of cruelty, just because it would have been easier to calibrate. The flatness of her voice was more disorienting than drama would have been. If you want to try again, I said, you have to let me be the whole version, not the edited one. She said, I know. I'm trying to figure out how. I drove back to Fredericksburg on a Saturday in March. No occasion. Aunt Loretta was there, and she fed me leftover soup and we talked about her garden. And then I went to the main house to see my mother. She'd been baking, which is what she does when she doesn't know what to do with her hands. I noticed the refrigerator immediately. There was a printed copy of the Architectural Digest digital piece, the one with my name in it, held up with a magnet shaped like a pineapple. It wasn't centered. It was slightly overlapping a photo of Devon's kids and a dentist appointment card. It looked like she had put it up quickly, before she lost her nerve, without taking anything else down to make room. It was crooked. I didn't straighten it. We sat at the kitchen table and she asked me to walk her through what the Hadley project had actually involved. From the beginning, I told her about the site visits, the lighting specifications, the argument about the windows, the contractor who had wanted to cut the corner, and the 3 days I'd spent building a case for why that specific detail mattered. She listened. She asked questions when she didn't follow. She did not redirect to Devon. She did not make the project smaller than it was to fit somewhere more comfortable. It is not a repaired relationship. That would be too clean a word for what we are. It is more like a structural renovation in progress. Walls still coming down, some of them load-bearing, and you don't know what you're going to find inside them until you open them up. But she left the article on the refrigerator door. That's something. If you have ever sat in a room where your own family performed a smaller version of you because the real one didn't fit their story, I need you to hear this clearly. Being managed by love is still being managed. The size of someone's fear about what you represent does not determine the size of what you are. I spent 29 years trying to earn a spot on a refrigerator door. What I actually needed was to stop auditing my life against what they were willing to display. The night Eleanor Hadley asked who I was, I could have let my mother answer. I know what that version of the night looked like. The quiet, the past bread, the drive home alone. I know it by heart. I've lived it in 100 smaller versions. I didn't live it that night. And the first person who needed to know that was not Eleanor, not my mother, not Devon, not the retired judge who heard the whole thing and said nothing dramatic and everything necessary. The first person who needed to know I was done being edited was me.